Hello and welcome to Trending Tonight, the only show on primetime television where we care to explain the news behind the trend. I'm Sanket Upadhyay. The story that we are going to track right here are two. Number one, look at those emojis. They are self-explanatory. Fuel is on fire. And we are going to explain in just a short moment why we say this and who should you blame for this fuel hike. The cost of fuel versus the exorbitant taxes debate is going to come up in just a short moment. Also, in Puducherry, fast-paced developments taking place. Now the Lieutenant Governor ceases to exist as the LG, but the man who claims to be at the receiving end of Dr. Kiran Bedi, V. Narayanasamy, is also looking at a possibility of his government being in minority with more and more MLAs now resigning. Two of them have joined the BJP. He says this is Operation Kamal ahead of the elections. That exclusive interview is going to come up in just a short moment from now. But let's first quickly try and explain why fuel is on fire and who's benefiting. So we know that fuel is taxed, but how heavily is it being taxed right now and how much of it is actual cost? This is data from IOCL.com which we have sourced for Delhi. Why diesel is costly? Because 55% of it is taxed. You see that from the time of the lockdown to now, the percentage increase in diesel is 27.9%, but the actual cost of diesel that has increased is only about 6.25%. The central government of the taxes gets the lion's share, 68.87%, whereas Delhi state gets 27%, around 27.09%. On petrol, you actually pay, right now on petrol, 60% of petrol in Delhi is tax. You're paying, there has been an increase in the cost by 28.3%. However, the actual cost of petrol has increased only 13.8%. The centre's share of the taxes has increased by 43.16%, whereas the state gets 39.35%. Now, of the total revenue that is collected on fuel as well as oil and petrol products, on your screen right now, who gets how much? So last year, the total revenue was 5,55,370 crores. The centre's share was 60%. The state's share was 40%. This year, of the provisional figures that we have sourced from ppac.gov.in for the first quarter, the revenue is 2,37,338 crores. The centre's share in these provisional figures has gone up to 65%. States are getting 35%. However, a rider that these are provisional figures which can get revised later. So let's now also listen in to what the Bihar Chief Minister said on the fuel price hike.
दाम कम होने चाहिए ना सर?
अब दाम बढ़ा हुआ है, दाम तो न बढ़े कम हो ये सबको अच्छा लगेगा, लेकिन अभी तो बढ़ा हुआ है, सबको दिख रहा है.
Okay, joining us right now is former Union Minister for Petroleum and Natural Gas, also former Chief Minister of Karnataka, Mr. Veerappa Moily. Mr. Moily, thank you so much for joining us right here on NDTV. You must have seen the manner in which the fuel hike is taking place. Now, you were also questioned and criticized when fuel prices were really high in UPA 2 and UPA 1. What is different from then and now?
Yeah, you have, of course, you start with, you have also analyzed what it is today and what it was yesterday. UPA 2's regime, one thing we have done it straight away when I became the Union Minister for Petroleum, and we gave up the process of administered pricing mechanism, ensured that low petrol and diesel prices have been provided to the consumers. I always consider that the consumer is the king. Consumer is the king and ultimately its sovereignty should prevail. And when the UPA 2 was in power, even with the crude oil price of $108 per barrel, we managed to keep the petrol prices at rupees 66 per litre and diesel at rupees 48.63 per litre. This is how we kept it. Of course, it is very a cost that the difference, we always subsidize it. It is a very big subsidy we gave. But this NDA government, sooner they came to power, even while having the advantage of low crude price of crude oil price of $46.17 per gallon, then keep the petrol and per barrel in 2016 and $47.56 per barrel in 2017, NDA kept the petrol prices high at rupees 60 per litre in 2016.
But you know, Mr. Moily, when we ask this question of the central government, they turn around and say that state VATs are also very high. It's not just central taxes. State governments are also charging. Many of them are Congress ruled.
No. Yeah. Even then, you know, it was not that high. As I could have realized, I listened to 2020. It's not exactly the state. State, of course, they will on the in the light of the hike by the center, they always raise them proportionately.
Okay.
Even there, I can show you, demonstrate the fact that, you know, the federal principle has also not been followed by this government. As against the UPA government, NDA utilized low oil prices to achieve fiscal deficit targets, which it never did. Instead, they should have shielded the consumers from the volatile international oil prices through a price stabilization fund.
Okay.
This is the difference between our government and the present government.
Sure.
In May 2012, for example, when petrol prices were hiked by steepest rupees 7.54 litre, Narendra Modi had called it a failure of the UPA government. However, in 2018, petrol was the costliest in India in all the South Asia.
Okay.
Just a difference.
Okay.
It's not only a failure, it is a total letdown of the consumers in India.
Okay. All right. Mr. Moily.
Instead of passing the benefit of benefit to the ordinary Indians, fuel prices are being brutally taxed by the NDA government.
Okay.
This is the difference.
Okay, Mr. Moily. So you're saying that tax is the problem and the central government taxes are the problem. But we'll have to put this to a debate as to why the government wants to achieve its fiscal deficit targets by treating these petrol stations as some sort of tax collecting ATM machines. Thank you very much, Mr. Moily, for joining us. We also spoke to Mr. Conrad Sangma because as far as the government is concerned, in the past we have seen that the NDA government, Modi government, brought down the taxes, central taxes, when the prices were high in Modi 1. But in Modi 2, so far, that has not happened. But states have started doing that. One such state is Meghalaya. We spoke to the Chief Minister. We saw a couple of years ago the centre initiate the rolling back of the taxes in order to provide relief. This time around, states have taken the lead. First of all, would you like to tell the residents of your state and also people staying elsewhere, what exactly is the decision of the Meghalaya government?
The decision of the Meghalaya government, keeping in mind the prices of petrol and diesel, is to reduce the overall VAT. So at one point for diesel, the percentage was close to 23%, but now we've reduced that for diesel and brought it down to 12% on the VAT. And at the same time for petrol also, it used to be at 31%, and now we have reduced the VAT to 20%. So we felt that it was necessary to do this because there was a lot of stress on the people and the consumers. It will affect the overall revenue structure for us because this is one of the higher sources of income for us. But we felt at this point in time that some kind of a relief needs to be given to the consumers because the amount is quite high right now.
Yeah. Now, Mr. Sangma, you mentioned a very important point that it is a very high source of revenue. Now, it is a high source of revenue for all governments. Do you think that this is a collective failing that for both the center and the state, you seem to be treating, petrol stations as some sort of a tax collection ATMs?
We see the last 1 year has been very, very difficult for the country as a whole. So all the state governments and the central government have faced huge financial crisis. So therefore, this was one of the areas in which we did have limited choice. So we needed to increase the revenue. But then at some point in time, we need to look into the entire thing and decide that, some relief has to be given. So when we saw that the prices were, climbing up again and again, we strongly felt as a state government that the time had come to give some relief to the people. So yes, it's been difficult and for government as well as for the people. But as I said, we need to balance things out.
Yeah, Mr. Sangma, the proportion of the state tax versus the central tax on fuel is a much debated issue, and it differs from state to state. What's the equation in your state, for instance?
Well, we have, of course, the amount of increase in the excise from the center has been much higher in the past 1 year. So maybe almost a double, triple of the amount that was increased by us during the COVID time. The excise duty by the center was increased. So that the difference was much, much higher from the state central government side. But now with the reduction from our side, the difference will be much, much larger. So the central government, as I said, of course, has a lot of pressure in the sense that there's huge financial strain on the system. So therefore, this, of course, does cause inconvenience, has been difficult for the people, but the government had to do it at a certain point. But as I was mentioning, there comes a point in time when then you need to take a call and realize that it's a bit too much and some relief needs to be given to them.
So do you think, would this be your message for the center as well? Because I clearly remember the late Arun Jaitley initiating this initiative where the center decided to cut cost or cut taxes on petrol and diesel by a significant amount. Do you feel that it will come as great relief if the center does that again, given the fact that we have a precedent?
I'm sure it will give a relief if the center does decide, but that will be a decision taken by the central government because there are many factors they need to consider. So I don't think I'll be the appropriate person to say whether the center should do it or not. But as I said, that we did whatever was within our reach, which was within our control, and we decided to reduce our VAT structure here.
Mr. Sangma, given the way fuel is on fire right now, I mean, in some states, some specific type of fuel is above 100. Would you call this an emergency enough for states as well, or governments, let's not differentiate between state and center, for governments to roll back their taxes, given how heavily taxed fuel is?
Absolutely. That's the reason why we have done it as a state, and we have reduced it by a very, very significant amount. But as I said, the individual decision will depend on the respective state governments and the central government.
Sure. All right. Mr. Sangma, many thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Mr. V. Narayanasamy, the Chief Minister of Puducherry, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Mr. Narayanasamy, your first reaction, you've seen that as many as 4 MLAs of the Congress party have now moved. 2 of them have joined the BJP. Your government is in minority. What do you make of all of this?
No, our government is not in minority. In fact, the 2 MLAs whom you are referring to were resigned. As far as one is concerned, he has not been coming personally. As far as the other MLA who has given it personally, Honorable Speaker is keeping the letter with him and he is going to take a call. Therefore, our government is not in minority. Because the BJP, including nominated MLA, they are 14, now we are 15. Including the resignation which has been sent by one of our MLA, one of our minister. Therefore, we are not in minority.
Okay. But Mr. Narayanasamy, Mr. A. Namasivayam and E. Thipianjan, both of them resigned on the 25th of January and till last reports, both of them have joined the BJP.
Yeah, both of them have joined BJP.
So then how can their resignation be under consideration if they've already joined? Won't they be automatically disqualified?
No, both the resignations have already been accepted. The minister's resignation was also accepted. It was accepted by the Honorable President.
Sure.
And those two persons are concerned who joined BJP because they have been removed by the Honorable Speaker has accepted the resignation. There is no issue on that so far now.
Sure.
As far as the other two people are concerned, I am referring to now.
Okay, so you're referring to Mr. Maladi Krishna Rao, who has quit today, and John Kumar, who has resigned as MLA.
Yeah, but the Maladi Krishna Rao, he was a minister, our minister, and also he has sent the resignation letter, which is under the consideration of the Honorable Speaker. His resignation has not been accepted. As far as John Kumar is concerned, it is also under consideration. Therefore, our government is not in minority.
So you still maintain that the government is not in minority. But Mr. Narayansamy, see how embarrassing is this for your government that a man who was with you in Delhi to request for the removal of Kiran Bedi is now very openly not with you. In fact, has resigned.
Well, because as far as that minister is concerned, we went and met the Honorable President of India about 4 days back. Because he has been harassed by the Lieutenant Governor, Dr. Kiran Bedi, several times. She was targeting him. In fact, whatever proposal goes relating to his constituency, she was either rejecting it or returning it. I've been fighting battle with her for the last 4 years to run this government. On the one side, the BJP at the center was targeting our Congress government here, Congress and DMK alliance government. On the other side, Kiran Bedi was interfering in the day-to-day administration of our government and trying to create problem for our government for implementation of welfare schemes. She was blocking it. The people of Puducherry knows it. And on the other side, the opposition parties in Puducherry, they were also targeting our government. It was a difficult task for me to run the government for 4 years and 9 months under the odd circumstances.
Correct. No,
but in spite of it, our government delivered to services to the people.
Sure. But Mr. Narayansamy, while I agree with your assessment, because this is a position you have been maintaining against Kiran Bedi for a while now, the point is that Mr. Maladi Krishna Rao, who quit on Monday, and John Kumar, who resigned as an MLA, this same Mr. Rao was with you to complain against the Lieutenant Governor, and now he has quit. He has resigned.
Yeah, because he was with me till 2 days back in Puducherry. Because Yanam is near Andhra Pradesh. Because he has got lot of pressure from the people of the constituency. Because the construction of the Venkateswara temple, Kiran Bedi was blocking. Then the flood bank, the development, she was blocking. She was blocking tourism projects there. She was blocking the engineering college there. She was blocking every development activities, including CSR fund to the fisherman community. Therefore, the minister was agitated.
So you're saying that Mr. Rao, out of irritation, has quit.
Irritation against Dr. Kiran Bedi. He has submitted.
So he's still with you. You're saying he's still with you?
I'm confident that I can persuade him.
Okay, so you're saying you can persuade a few people, but Mr. Narayansamy, I spoke to a lot of people in the Bharatiya Janata Party, and they seem to say that this is just the tip of the iceberg. There are many more who will jump ship, not just MLAs but other leaders.
Ankit ji, I tell you one thing. You know the style of functioning of BJP at the center and also in the states. They will poach MLAs. They will buy MLAs. They have done it in Manipur. They have done it in Arunachal Pradesh. They have done it in Gujarat. They have done it in Karnataka. They have done it in Madhya Pradesh. They are only purchasing MLAs. It is a shame on the part of BJP when the elected government is being targeted by making them as a commodity, purchasing them and try to topple the government. The duly elected Congress government. So, is it not shame on the part of BJP?
Do you feel that this is because the Congress has usually dubbed this as Operation Kamal. So are you saying that in Puducherry an Operation Kamal is happening?
Yes, it is there. BJP people are camping here and they are doing it. Day in and day out they have been doing it. And they have been targeting for the last 4 years. Now alone they are able to shake some people. But I tell you one thing, people of Puducherry will teach a lesson to this BJP in Puducherry.
No, Mr. Narayansamy, see, you are saying people will teach a lesson. Now, I'm looking at the figures of 2016 polls. The BJP contested on all 30 seats, but it lost all of the 30 seats, right?
Now, they contested in 18 seats.
18 seats, beg your pardon. But But
not
they
not
lost
only
all.
they lost, no, not lost all. They lost deposit in all 18 seats.
Okay.
I
But
would
how-
like to make an amendment on that.
But,
one
you know-
MLA, one MLA who has been nominated now, because one nominated MLA died, they nominated another man. He contested in Bagur Assembly constituency.
Sure.
He got only 35 votes in the assembly. 35 votes. This is the murder of democracy by Bharatiya Janata Party in Puducherry.
No, but then Mr. Narayanasamy, this is 2016. I'm talking about 2021, where the party only recently has appointed what many would call heavyweights as the state in charge. You have Mr. Arjun Ram Meghwal, who's going to be the in charge of Puducherry, and the co-in charge will be Rajiv Chandrasekhar. In the midst of this heavy political artillery, do you think you will be able to withstand your own in the elections?
Now, because our alliance, Congress, DMK, CPI, CPM, BCK alliance is very strong in Puducherry. The people of Puducherry, they only go for secular parties. They will not agree, they will not support any communal elements. Because Puducherry is a different entity. Therefore, whatever the heavyweights coming here, whatever the people who are coming here to campaign here in Puducherry, the people of Puducherry will teach them the lesson.